Hey, what's up, guys? Jake here, another episode of On the Rise Music Podcast. Today, we are honored to have special guest, DJ, and producer Kleopatra. Hey, I'm a huge fan of your music. How you been?
I've been good. How have you been?
Doing a little bit better. Quarantine's coming to an end, so as I'm sure you're as excited as I am. Live shows and everything's opening up. That's one thing that we've missed a lot of during this pandemic. So yeah, I'm pretty excited. Doing well, doing well.
That's good. Yeah, it's been one long ass pandemic, that's for sure.
Yeah, for the better part of a little over a year, a lot of us have. Yeah, I mean, granted, it's been a good moment in time for you and many other producers to really just like sit down and take a break and to work on a little bit of the craft. But I mean, with that being a positive and a negative to it is again the separation, the isolation from everyone else, and even just like the absence of shows. I mean, as simple as that sounds, like that connection between yourself and the crowd, that feeling of community is lost. So a lot of us don't feel the same, you know.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of people didn't realize like how important um, shows are for mental health.
Yeah, it's like mental health, community, all of it. Like you just feel lost without it in a way. Um,
Yeah, definitely.
Now, how was your quarantine in terms of like working on music and everything? Ready to
So at
throw out any
first,
new sounds? Anything experimental that you were working on?
so I had like really bad writer's block, and I was just like having a hard time trying to stay motivated
Hmm.
after the lockdown. But then I just kind of forced myself through it, and I dropped that collab with Zuba on
Hmm.
Subsidia Records. Um, and then since that, I've just been working on an EP, so that should be coming out pretty soon.
All right, nice. Yeah, keep me busy. And that's one thing that I noticed is a huge is like a huge factor in being successful and hitting the ground running in terms of like life after the pandemic. Like you mentioned, you hit some writer's block, but the only way that you're really going to come out of it is if you just like sit with it and push through it. And I'm like you mentioned, you came out and you did your thing. So that's definitely gonna show in terms of life after the pandemic. Like you're gonna have a lot more. You're gonna have a lot more traction in terms of like what's your, and I mean, even then you're performing in what, like 2 weeks. You're headlining or you're part of the headliner for this, I believe it's Spring Fest, right?
Yeah, so I'm headlining in Orlando at Hanau Soundgarden with Autocorrect, and then 2 days later on the 17th, I'm headlining Spring Fever Music Festival. And that has Lil Xan, J6,
Hmm.
Nathan James, a bunch of other people.
Yeah, so I mean, you were doing your thing this quarantine. Not much more you could really ask for, besides maybe some shows.
Yeah,
But I mean,
exactly.
hey, I mean it's paying off now.
Yeah, definitely.
So just bringing it back all the way to the beginning. So you have a little bit of a background in classical music. So would you say that was what helped inspire you looking at, or in terms of looking at production, or would you say there was a different influence in your life that kind of pushed you to producing EDM?
I think it was a little bit of both, like, because I played four instruments when I was younger, but then I like lost interest, and then when I was like 19 or 20, I just made a ton of friends in the EDM industry, and they would always invite me to come to their shows and whatever. And then one day it just hit me that this is what I wanted to do. And yeah, I do think having a background in music has something to do with it. And it's definitely helped, I think.
Hmm. Yeah, I would definitely say so. And I mean, you even took it further. You took it a step further. You ended up going to Salt Lake DJ and production, just to brush up on a little bit of your like your just production skills and everything. So not only helped you, I mean, you had a leg up on everybody already being classically trained, and I'm sure that like just pushed you a little bit further ahead.
Yeah, it definitely helps with the music theory portion, because that's a whole nother like realm of
Hmm.
stuff that you have to learn. Like it's not like production is like, oh, just make this sound and put it
Yeah.
there. You know, you have to know music theory too.
Yeah, and it's like it really shows when you start off like just making music, and then you go and learn about music theory. There's like a huge difference in terms of just like quality of music. Now, did you initially start off by going to production school, or did you start producing first and then realize like this was something that you had to do?
So at the time, I was actually going to the University of Utah, and then
Hmm.
when I wanted to get into production, they weren't offering an Ableton course. They might now, but they weren't back then. So I dropped out of the U and then started going to SLDP, and that's when I started producing. Like I didn't know anything about producing whatsoever before I started going there.
That's actually kind of interesting. I know quite a few producers, and a few friends of mine were actually they produced before, and then they started going to like a production school, or just like an engineering school. So it's like they had a sound, and then when they got out of it, their sound was just like so much better, or it was just different, and it was just sounded more professional. So that's interesting that you mentioned that you kind of went in just completely like unknown, and just not familiar with it. So was there anyone in particular in your time going to production school that like helped shape your sound, or was it something, or was your sound more inspired by what you personally like?
It's more inspired by what I personally liked. I didn't really know what my sound was until like a year or two after I graduated from that school.
Hmm.
So having mentors that went to Icon definitely helped, because I mean the school I went to is great and everything, but it's not like Icon. So
Yeah. I mean, hey, it's something, and I mean, it's gotten you to this point. It's got you recognized by quite a big artist, by quite a few big DJs and producers. I mean, in a span of 3 years. So you've definitely come out like swinging. Who was your first, or when was it when you realized like, wow, I'm actually starting to make like an impact in music? Like who first reached out to you when you were just like, oh my gosh, are you serious? This is crazy.
so it was about a year ago. Zed's Dead played two of my tracks on three different um, episodes of their Deadbeats radio. And then they gave me two shout outs. So at that time I was like, oh shit, like it's starting to go.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure at that point, or you'd probably, and being just a producer, I'm sure you're really overly critical. So for you to have heard like your music being played by someone who like you look up to, and someone, I mean, like we were talking before the interview, Zed's Dead was like one of the first artists that you really saw. So for you to really like for to experience that, that must have just been like, oh my gosh, maybe I am doing something right.
Yeah, it definitely was. I'm pretty sure I cried a little bit too. 'Cause it was like
It's,
three years of busting my ass,
mhm.
nothing's really happening, and then all of a sudden I get an email like, hey, we're playing your stuff on Deadbeats tonight. I'm like, oh damn.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like you're obviously not going to see initial success, so you definitely can't
Yeah.
give up. Like you mentioned, it's hard work. It's not something that just comes easy. Like after a while, yeah, it's like it's just second nature. But for the most part, it's like to get there, it wasn't easy work. It wasn't something that you could just like blow right through. You had to sit down and really take it all, like just absorb it all, and then figure out what works for you. So yeah, like not giving up, it definitely pays off. No matter how hard that work is, once you get that recognition, it's very fulfilling.
Yeah, it definitely is. I'm starting to see more and more um, rewards as
Hmm.
time's going by. Like I just played on um, Deadbeats House Party a couple weeks ago too.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's just, it's like your talent is not going to go unrecognized as long as you put in the work, as long as you're putting in the time, the effort. The right people will find you, and I mean, it's starting to happen now. So it's only a matter of time before you're up there, and you're some producer's first show. You're the reason why. It's only a matter of time before you're the reason why some people are getting into music production and everything.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Now I understand you're a woman in music and you're part of Girl Gang, and we actually interviewed we interviewed Lays a couple weeks back, actually a couple months back, and she was just talking about how like important it was being part of a girl group and or girl gang, excuse me, and how much that has like inspired her and her work. Um, how was that being reached out by Girl Gang and asking to join? Because I understand it is a little music production is like a male dominated industry. So how was that to be reached out by Girl Gang and to have their and to have that collective backing you and being in your corner?
Yeah, it was awesome. Like I joined, I think, pretty close to when Jeannie first started it, and just learning that there were so many other women in EDM was awesome. And
Mm-hmm.
they've all just been like super supportive. Like no one really has beef with each other. It's awesome.
Yeah, that's super important, especially yeah, excuse me, in an industry that is so competitive. You don't want to like lose your footing. You don't want to be pinned against someone, because in the end, it's the only people who are really going to win are not going to be you two that are fighting. It's going to be someone else. So to help each other and to like inspire each other, that's all that is really necessary. You got to push each other. Um, you can't grow unless you help others grow. So yeah, by having that support, I totally believe that it's super beneficial in terms of staying grounded and knowing like where to go in music. And I mean, hey, like you get all this advice. You're not lost. You have people that are willing to like collaborate with you and help you out.
Yeah.
Um, Now, some of the bigger shows that you've played, and like I said, you're only 3 years in, pretty much for the most part, because like you mentioned, you really didn't start producing until after you graduated, but or after you
Oh
finished
no.
your. Oh, I'm sorry.
After I started going there, so it's been almost 5 years now.
Oh, okay. Oh, but still, I mean, hey, you still have a pretty illustrious career for still being for still relatively starting like within 5 years. Now,
Yeah.
what was one of your biggest shows, and how did that come to being?
Um. So I played. Let's see. I think one of my favorite ones that I've played so far was Believe Music Hall in Atlanta.
Okay.
Pixel Terror was supposed to play, but they had to reschedule, so they booked me to replace them. And I was like, oh, like no one's gonna show up, no one's gonna be there. And then I get there, and it's like pretty much sold out. So that was awesome.
Yeah, and it's like those are those experiences where it's like, hey, I wasn't the first. I wasn't the first person to go to. So yeah, it is a little nerve wracking. But I mean, hey, when you're doing your thing and you're making music that people can really connect to, um, hey, you're gonna turn up and all of a sudden everyone's gonna be there. So I can only imagine how that must have felt to be like, wow, I guess I really am like again, guess I really am doing something right. I guess I really am connecting with these
Oh
people.
yeah, definitely. And I was
Uh,
super nervous at first too, because it had been forever since I played a show because of quarantine. But this was when places were starting to open back up.
mm-hmm.
So then, yeah, I was just really nervous. But I ended up doing great. So
Yeah, that's all that matters. As long as you kill the set, you just kick in the adrenaline kicks in, nerves go away, and all of a sudden you're just doing your thing, and everyone's connecting with you, connecting with the music, and just going crazy. So it's I can only imagine how amazing of an experience that must have felt, especially like you mentioned, right out of quarantine. Everything been closed up for a good amount of time. So for you to come out and to be like, wow, I missed this. Like that must have been pretty crazy.
Oh yeah, especially because before quarantine, like I had played out of state a couple times, but it wasn't like the best one out of state that I had played before quarantine was the Space Dome at Base Canyon.
Hmm.
Um, but other than that, like all the other shows I was playing didn't like they weren't that packed, you know, it was just like whatever. And then quarantine hit, and then all of a sudden the first show I'm playing was on the other side of the country, and it's like sold out. It was like, whoa.
Yeah, real rock star lifestyle is starting to kick in.
Yeah.
And that, like, speaking of that, I mean, you have quite a bit of touring that you've done. I mean, domestically, but still, you're still moving around, doing your thing. So what is that like, living on the road and just having that as it essentially like your life?
I actually really like it, but my dad's a pilot, so I kind of grew up traveling all the time.
Okay.
But yeah, I actually really like it. I feel like I'd start to get really cranky if I don't get to travel every couple months. I don't know. I just get bored being in one place for too long. So
No, I get that. I totally understand that. Sometimes cabin fever really, really kicks in, and it's just like, yo, I got to do something. And what's even better now,
yeah,
I mean, at least now it's your income that you're making. It's like as much as it was fun to travel with your dad and your parents and everything. It's like, hey, this is for me. Like this is something that I'm actually doing for myself. Gaining money, gaining fans, just having fun. So it's definitely I can imagine it'd be a little bit of a step up compared to just traveling with the family.
oh yeah. I mean, it's always fun traveling with family, but
Oh,
now
for
I'm getting
sure.
like paid to do what I love, which
Yeah.
is like the sickest thing ever.
Yeah, it doesn't even feel like a job at this point, huh?
Yeah, no, it doesn't at all. It feels like I'm just having fun. Like it's like I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's all that should really matter. I mean, that's why you do it. That's why you produce music. That's why you're up there doing your thing. It's like because it's fun. And
Yeah,
I'm sure
exactly.
money is a nice thing and having income is a nice thing, but that's not why you did this. You really went into this trying to just have fun, just to express yourself. And the fact that you're finally doing something with it and that you're able to do something with it, another huge plus too.
Yeah, I agree.
It's like why how can this be a job if it's just this much fun? You know what I'm saying?
Oh, that's 100% how I feel. Like there's
Um,
no way this is real.
oh, for sure. Now, while you're on the road and everything, do you get like a little homesick in terms of or and like follow up question? What's the longest you've been on the road touring?
Not very long yet, just because, like I said, like it, I just now started getting really good momentum,
Hmm.
like within the last few months. And before quarantine, I wasn't playing that often. So I did like a 4 day weekend, and then I'm doing another 4 day weekend. So I guess really just 4 days, but for shows anyway that I'm playing,
Hmm.
I am hoping to go on tour with a couple other people this year as well, provided COVID keeps going away.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I'm starting to notice a little bit that you have more of a domestic following. Is there any possibility in the future that we may see, I don't know, a international tour, an international appearance?
Oh yeah, that's the main goal for me is to tour internationally. I would love to like play Rampage over in
Hmm.
Europe. I would love to do like New Zealand, Australia, South America,
Oh,
maybe Asia,
yeah, that
pretty
would that
much
would be pretty
anywhere I
crazy.
want to go.
Um,
Sorry.
it. I'm just saying that would be really crazy if you were to end up just moving up and all of a sudden you're just headlining everything. Your name's on the international. You're just Mrs. Worldwide. You know.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you have like a large following outside of the country? And if you do, what specific areas are those followers?
I think the last time I looked, one of them was like, okay, so Canada, Mexico, Australia. I think one was like Russia. So
International
it's,
tour,
I mean,
the North American tour, possibly.
yeah. I mean, it's mostly domestic right now, but I mean, just the fact that my music is getting played in other countries is a good start.
No, yeah, definitely. And like you said, you're going across country. Like for you to have your music listened to in a different state, let alone all the way across the other side of America, that's crazy. That just means that you're actually like I said earlier, you're doing something right. Like you're firing all cylinders. You figured it out. So I mean, hey, it's like it's just the start. It's only the beginning of your rise to the top, you know?
Yeah.
Do you have any like do you want to start like a label eventually in terms of uh like future plans, like working with people, creating your own collective, or are you just kind of just playing it by ear and just doing the production and seeing where everything falls into place?
Eventually, I think I want to throw my own festivals, but I mean, that's
Hmm.
not for but till I'm like way bigger. I would kind of want to do what Excision's doing.
Okay.
How he has like his own two festivals. So I
Hmm.
would do something similar to that, but I think I would probably have like all genres.
Hmm. I like that. I really like that idea. The reason I say that is because there's a lot of people that just don't listen to EDM music because they're just not really exposed to it. So
Yeah.
if you have like a festival where you have like EDM music and then you have rap and then you have just like indie, whatever it may be, alternative, you're exposing more people to that music. You're exposing more people to that genre that they otherwise would not have listened to. So it's like not only are you providing a space for other artists to play, but it's like you're providing a space for people to like just consume the music organically, just to be in the space that's best to listen to this music. Because from what I've heard, a lot of different producers telling me is like the best place to really hear EDM music is at a show. That's the only place you can really experience the energy of both the crowd and the DJ while also just being surrounded by just great energy.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely agree.
And it's like the other thing too is at that point you're going to be able to pretty much just dictate what goes, like just who's popping. So everyone's going to be looking up to you. You know, you're going to be finally the person, the tastemaker up there.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, Now I just want to dig into a little bit of like your sound and everything. And I actually I kind of like the bass elements and everything, and your biography describes it as, or describes you as going to shake the dance floor with soul rending subsonic music, and I love that because when I was listening to your music and I was getting into it, I was just, yeah, I was, in a way I was like I felt compelled to move. Is that what your goal is for all your songs that you produce, or are you kind of just start with like a melody and then just figure out the vibe from there?
So I usually start with the drop and then
Oh,
go
okay.
from there. Yeah, I do the drop first and then I'll move on to the intro and then breakdown and then second drop. It's
Huh.
like it just depends on what sound design I go with because I don't always
Mhm.
do heavy stuff. You know, I've done like melodic or something more wonky. So
Yeah, so I'm guessing you don't like to necessarily define yourself in terms of noise, or not noise, excuse me, in terms of like sound and everything.
yeah, I just don't want to like only make rhythm or something. You know, I
Hmm.
want to make all types of bass music
Yeah, and that's a great
because
approach. You don't want to box
I
yourself
per
in, you know?
yeah, I've always thought it's super impressive when producers produce other styles too, you know, instead of just sticking to just one. So
Yeah, you don't want your fans to get too comfortable because eventually everyone's going to be like, okay, well this is nice. Can we hear something different? Like, I mean, it's not that we don't like the classics, but It's just the same thing over and over again. But like, just speaking
Yeah.
of that, some people get mad too. They just get upset that like a producer is making something that's not consistent with their sound. Um, have you faced any of that like backlash from fans or even just critics?
No, I haven't personally. I think maybe just because I've always been like doing different stuff instead of
Hmm.
just like one day releasing something different. But like when that happened to Getter, I thought that was pretty fucked up the way
Yeah.
people were like treating him over it. It's like, dude.
Yeah, it's not fair to switch up on an artist like that. They don't owe. In all honesty, I mean, you don't owe your fans really anything. You're making what you think. What no, you're not even making what you think you like. You're making what you like. So if they're gonna reject what you're putting out, it's like, hey, you're really taking a shot at me. Like you truly don't like me if you're just gonna be trashing me for something that as simple as like, oh, it's just a different sound. Like, hey, I wanted to experiment.
Yeah, exactly. Like, not all music is for everyone.
Hmm.
So it's one thing like if you don't like a song, but to sit there and like just trash the artist repeatedly. I mean, it's basically bullying. Like that's like
Yeah.
if you don't like it, that's fine, but you don't have to say anything.
Yeah, it's a move on. Just I mean, hey, there's there other music like I think it was Tyler Creator who was like, you guys want me to, you guys keep asking me to make music like Wolf. Well, Wolf is still out on like streaming platforms. I don't know why you're asking me to make music like that. You can just go listen to it. Like in all seriousness,
Yeah.
like it's all there. If you really don't want to listen to it, you don't have to. But eventually, what's funny is like a lot of this experimental and just movement and everything in terms of like sound and production. It's like in a couple of years, or even just like a couple artists, like one or two artists later, all of a sudden people are like, "Wow, this is crazy." And then the person who was doing this in the beginning, they're like, "Hey, what do you mean it was crazy? I was doing this and you guys were dogging me for it. Now you're ready to accept it." But hey, I mean, maybe sometimes again, maybe people just aren't ready to accept the new experimental sound. But I mean, that being said, hey, it's the artist, it's the producer. It's not you who dictates what can be put out. You know.
Right.
And I actually I that's actually really interesting that you mentioned that you don't really have experienced any sort of backlash yet because of that inconsistent or not inconsistent, but your consistent inconsistencies in terms of sound and everything. So yeah,
Right.
you're pretty much just setting up people to like expect the unexpected, and I think that's really interesting. You keep your fans on the toes and on their toes in a way.
Yeah, thank you.
Um, Now, growing up and everything, just like even throwing it back just a little bit more, switching gears a little bit. What music were you growing up listening to? I know because you mentioned that you grew up in Southern California for about your first 15 years of your life. So I'm sure that and I'm being from Southern California as well. There's just like a certain um, um, like style of music and genre of music that is typically enjoyed. So what music were you growing up to, or what music were you listening to while you were growing up?
I was listening to pretty much everything. A lot of hip hop, reggae, um, alternative music, just a little bit of everything, actually.
Hmm. Yeah,
Pop.
that's what I started noticing too. And you mentioned that just like a plethora of different genres that you listen to. Is that a lot of artists now are starting to incorporate like it almost in a way the music becoming alternative because they're inspired by all this stuff growing up. So like you mentioned, you don't like to stick to a certain sound, and that's really interesting because you didn't grow up listening to a specific sound. You grew up listening to a bunch of different like music genres. So in a way, um, your music is somewhat alternative. It's not. It isn't defined by a single genre. It's bending. It's liminal. It fits in between these different like genres within EDM. So that's really interesting, and that your background in terms of what you listen to is very ununiform but cohesive in a way. You know.
Yeah.
And I mean that makes you in a way more appealing. Like you're not like everyone else. You're not listening to what you hear and copying it, because like we mentioned earlier, that's not sustainable. You're obviously, people are going to be like, okay, this is cool, let's hear something new, like not to like put you down or whatever, but this is old in a way. So you avoid that. You're kind of on the cusp, on the edge, constantly leaving people wondering like, oh, what's she going to come out with next? And I mean, I think that's a pretty beneficial thing to have, because it can't be defined. You're just Cleopatra.
Right. Well, thank you.
Now your name Cleopatra. I'm a classics minor and everything, so I understand a little bit of the tale of Cleopatra and the legend behind her. What made you inspired to pick that name? Was it just because of how badass she was and how she kind of just took control of Rome and kind of did her own thing? Was just in a way a boss bitch, or is it something more personal to you?
It's actually more personal. So for one, I've always just been super intrigued by ancient Egypt. And then, so 2016 was my lucky year, according to the Chinese. And during my lucky year was also the first time in 2,373 years the stars aligned with the pyramids.
Oh,
and that also took place during the time that I decided I wanted to produce. So I figured, why not pick that?
Yeah, damn, that is really interesting. That's probably one of the crazier stories that I've heard in terms of like name choices. Everything kind of just fell in line.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's insane. I've heard people be like, "Oh, it's my nickname growing up, so I just kind of played with it." I've heard, "Oh, it was my gamer tag," blah blah blah. But I've never heard like, "Yo, it was destiny." Like that's crazy. I actually really like the story. I mean, and it
Oh,
works
thank you.
too. It's like Cleopatra was. I mean, she was a bad bitch. She like did her thing, and like you're doing your thing
Yeah.
in the booth, on the stage. So it like fits. It just all around just a perfect name in a way.
Oh, thank you.
Um, Now, uh, I know you're a busy woman. You got things you got to do. You got songs you got to produce. But I just wanted to say thank you, Cleopatra, for coming on. Just topping it up with us real quick. I do have one last question before I let you go and tend to your many other businesses or ideas of business and music production. So the final question is actually a two-part question. What is one piece of advice you want to give a starting producer, a beginning producer, beginning artist, or just a younger you, that you believe is important in terms of their journey, their production journey, their artistic journey, whatever it may be? And then second part is, if there's anyone you're working with right now, or there's anyone that inspired you or that you think deserves a little bit of recognition, you're more than welcome to just go ahead and shout them out.
Okay. So my advice would be just keep going. Like, honestly, like, work on music as much as you can and try to learn as much as you can. It takes a long time to learn everything there is to know with production. I don't even know everything there is to know, and I've been doing it for 5 years. But if you put in the hard work and just keep going, like, it'll start happening for you. That's just how it works. And don't get too down on yourself just because someone else is further along than you are. You just got to keep going and stay consistent. That's another thing, is stay consistent with how hard you're working.
Mm-hmm.
Want to give a shout out to my boy Vulcan and my dudes Permatrip. Got collab with both of them coming in the near future. So,
all right. Thank you again, Cleopatra. Some wise words. Don't give up, and be persistent. With that being said, thank you again for coming on. Look forward to those collabs coming out very soon. I presume. I mean, I know I'll be keeping a lookout for those. But again, thank you, Cleopatra. We appreciate you coming on. You were a wonderful guest. despite all the technical difficulties, I still think we had a great interview. Don't forget to follow Kleopatra on Instagram. Don't forget to listen to her music on SoundCloud, Spotify, wherever music can be listened to. Her Instagram handle is at It's Me Cleopatra. That's with the K instead of a C. Twitter's same thing. Don't forget to like and subscribe on the Rise Music channel. Don't forget to turn on those notifications. Don't forget to watch our old videos, and don't forget to follow our Instagram. With that being said, have an amazing day. Thanks again, Cleopatra, for coming out, and peace out, y'all.
All right. Thanks for having me, and thanks for tuning in.
Yes, sir.